can you check about,
Jai, Chelsea, Maharani, Jai. Jimmy, it's all tangled up. I don't look at it. This thing is all tangled up. I don't know what's happening. Someone messed it up inside there. No, that's not gonna do anything. You gotta get on the cord.
so I brought my speakers here as a backup in case the speakers aren't working.
Yeah. You gotta press the button on the junction box. Someone messed it up. Press the button on the junction box.
Should I plug this in already, Jugger Crew?
Looks like it's working. Okay, it's working.
Thank you.
Sorry for that.
Many hands make light work. At Jugger Crew, are you going to stay to, because the curtains are going to open late, are you going to stay to switch the camera, or does Ishwar Chaitanya need to come up from the kitchen to do that? Okay, all right. So we're good, Ishwar Chaitanya. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Wow, one of the jasmine garlands. I just want to say about these jasmine garlands, Shyam Kishore grows the jasmines, and each of these flowers, each flower is only this big. So she's growing these jasmine, she's picking each of these tiny little flowers, and then she's making them into a garland that's this thick. And then she drives all the way here to bring them here. Huh.
She made that specially for you, Mark.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Really? Is that true? Okay, let's just test. I don't know what to say to that. I'm just kind of overwhelmed. Okay, let's just test some sound. Is that going to go over the internet? Great. Thank you. What? Oh, there we go. Okay. So today is August 27th, 2026, in New Goloka, Hillsborough, North Carolina. We really want to thank everyone who helped with the tech Dear Krishna Mars and Jagat Guru and Ishwar Chaitanya. And a real shout out to Sham Kishori. Thank you so much. Prabhupada says that even if you don't study the Shastra and you don't have a spiritual master, that you can find God in the fragrance of a flower. And one time, devotees gave Prabhupada jasmine flowers that he kept on his pillow all night. And he said, yes, this is Krishna. So I showed this also last year, but hopefully this will still be fresh and new. This is the appearance day of Lord Balaram. Again, it's August 27, 2026, Hillsborough and Balaram's appearance day. Vahasiva pushi vishade vasanam jaladabam. Vahasiva pushi vishade vasanam jaladabam. Harahati biti mavita yamunabam. Harahati biti mavita yamunabam. Keshavadvita halavarupa. Keshavadvita halavarupa. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. So here is that Lord Balaram is wearing clothes, vasanam, jaladabam, jaladabam, what holds the water. He's wearing clothes just like the clouds that are holding the water on his brilliant white body. And hala, due to his plow, biti, he had fear in the Yamuna, and he brought the Yamuna to him. All glories to the Lord of the universe who carries the plow. Vahasiva pushi vishade vasanam jaladabam. Harahati biti milita yamunabam. Vahasiva pushi vishade vasanam jaladabam. Harahati biti milita yamunabam. Keshavadvita haladarupa. Keshavadvita haladarupa. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya, Asatara Satashri Srimati Divine Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Mathura Dhama Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai. Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvise Susunyavadi Paskachate Shatarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpachubhischa Kripa Sindhavyabacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Lord Balarama Ki. So we're going to look who is Balaram? We're going to look at his Raja pastimes, Mathura pastimes, and
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So who is Balaram? He's the fountainhead of all incarnations, right? Lord Krishna and Balaram, they're basically same person, two different bodies. So Krishna is the primeval Lord, and his first expansion is Balaram. That the Lord can expand himself into innumerable forms, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantaru form, and those that have unlimited potency are called the Swamsa incarnations. So they're the same identity, but they differ in form. And this confuses people who don't understand the Vedic tradition. They think we're worshiping many gods. Right? They don't understand. Of course, even for all of us, materially, we have different manifestations to some extent, depending on our mood and our activities, right? Like the other day, I was doing all this service for Tulsi, and I was getting all dirty, and so I was wearing, sweatpants and a t-shirt, and somebody came to me and said, "Oh, I've never seen you like that." And you may have a different mood, right? How you're dressed at the office, what your mood is at the office, what your mood is at home with your family. So why can't Krishna have so many different forms and so many different moods? Actually, it's stated very nicely in the Bhagavatam by Lord Brahma that the Lord has whatever form the devotee wants to worship him in. Yes, and one of the things that should happen as we advance in bhakti is there should be a particular form of the Lord that especially captures our attention, particular age of the Lord, particular form of the Lord. So Balaram is this Swansa expansion. So there's no difference in potency between Krishna and Balaram. He's the chief deity among the quadruple forms. And this Lord of Swetadweep is Seshanaga. So we also worship the Lord Balaram as an unlimited snake. Ananta Sesha, the unlimited snake, who holds all the planets on his hoods. Actually, Srila Prabhupada writes in CC Adi 5:119, purport, that the whole idea of gravity is actually Balaram. That, they don't really understand. One godbrother wrote a book about science. He has a very interesting chapter on gravity, how nobody really understands what gravity is. That's because gravity is Lord Balaram. And he's the original shelter of the Purusha. This is from Adi 5:48. That Sankarshan, whose pure goodness is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. And Srila Prabhupada explains in 1975 that Balaram is presenting Krishna, And therefore, he is the original guru, and any bona fide guru has to be representing Lord Balaram. Actually, Prabhupada said, guru is not a particular man, guru is a principle. Guru is a truth. This guru tattva is actually Balaram, and the individual jivas who represent Balaram, they are guru. And Balaram is in the mood of a servant of Krishna. You know, in this world, none of us want to be a servant. We all want to be a master. So I often say, I don't know any parents who say to their children, I want you to grow up and be a servant. Nobody, you know, grow up and be a maid or butler or something like that, be a servant. No, they're all saying, I want you to be a leader. I read one Christian writer, he says that in the Bible we talk a lot about being a servant, but if you go to a Christian bookstore, all the books are about leadership. And we have the same kind of situation, just leadership, leadership. What about servitorship? And so Lord Balaram, the supreme guru, the Swamsa incarnation of the Lord, he's acting as a servant. He's the Lord's umbrella. He's the Lord's throne. He's the Lord's slippers. He's the Lord's pillow. He's the Lord's clothing. He's the Lord's sacred thread. Everything, the Lord's bed. When we're dealing with the deity's paraphernalia, we're actually dealing with Lord Balaram. We shouldn't be thinking, oh, this is just a swing, you know, this is just a bed, this is just some clothing, but we're actually dealing with Balaram. So today this is the lunar anniversary of the appearance of Lord Balaram. He has a very interesting appearance. So after Kamsa killed the 6 sons of Devaki, then on the order of Krishna, his incarnation, Balaram, enters Devaki's womb. Such a nice painting that our dear Madhava Priya did of Balaram inside the womb of Devaki. And he purified the womb to prepare for the entrance of the Lord. Just as Guru purifies our heart so that Krishna can manifest there. And then he was attracted to the womb of Rohini, another wife of Vasudeva. And everyone understood that both of these ladies had had miscarriages because Rohini was already pregnant with another child. And this was a great bewilderment to Kamsa because he wanted to kill all of Devaki's children. So he had to count that as one of the children, but he wasn't in a position to kill that child. And very interesting, something that we don't have time to get into, but it's just a very interesting meditation on Mother Rohini in Vrindavan. So Mother Rohini in Vrindavan, she's under the care of her husband's cousin, Nanda Maharaj, and her dear friend, Yasoda, but she's away from her husband, and she is having to raise Balaram almost like she's a single mother, and without much, what that's like for her. How does Mother Rohini feel that she's giving birth, right, away from her husband? She's raising her child alone, and all of the wonderful things with Balaram's childhood, his getting his first teeth and him crawling and his walking in the mud of Vrindavan. She can't share that with Vasudeva. And of course, how is Vasudeva feeling? We know that when Nanda Maharaj goes to pay taxes in Mathura, Vasudeva immediately says, how's Balaram? And how is Krishna? Because he doesn't want to tell anyone that Krishna is also his child. But he's asking, how is my son Balaram? Are you nicely protecting him in this mood? Sometimes we think, if I become a pure devotee, my life will all just be easy and happy. And we don't necessarily think about what does Krishna ask of his devotees to be in his service. Of course, these devotees experiencing this sort of separation is a kind of ecstasy. One of the 7 secondary rasas, the karuna ras, the compassion or the lamentation ras, one aspect of it is you're having compassion for your family and relatives. And the example that Srila Rupa Goswami gives is that Sahadev is saying, I think it's Sahadev or Nakul, I can't remember now which one. He's saying, oh, my father Pandu, my mother Madri, you are no longer here on this earth to see the footprints of Krishna. So I'm sure it's also like that Rohini's thinking, oh, my poor husband Vasudeva, who's not here to see his beloved child, the Supreme Lord, the most wonderful child in the world. I wish he was here, I wish he was here. And that lamentation is explained by all of our acharyas, is actually ecstatic. You know, we can have a little bit of an idea of that, just like people pay money to see a sad movie, right? And someone will say, was it a good movie? Yo, it was great. I cried the whole time. So we have some idea that sadness can be happiness. So this separation between the parents, between Vasudeva and his son, is actually increasing their ecstasy in love. So looking at Balaram's Vrindavan pastimes, so Nanda Maharaj arranged for the naming ceremony, that Gargarishi would do the naming ceremony in the cowshed. You would think that for God, you'd have a grandiose ceremony. But he said, I don't want anyone to know, because they might understand that this might be a child that they would get Kamsa would kill. And Gargamuni said about Balaram, he said, this child, the son of Rohini, will give all happiness to his relatives and friends. He will be known as Rama. Because he will manifest extraordinary bodily strength, he will be known as Bala. Because he unites two families, Vasudev's and Nanda's, he will be known as Sankarshan. And it's explained in Bhagavatam 1.3.28 that the beauty of the Lord is especially manifest in Lord Balaram, Mohini, and Vamandev. So Balaram is considered a beauty incarnation of the Lord. And in Bhagavatam 10.8.52 it says, thus the Supreme Personality Krishna, along with Balaram, lived in Vrindavan by exhibiting his different pastimes. In his childhood he increased the pleasure of Nanda and the other inhabitants of Vrindavana. So we were talking about the separation of Vasudeva, but here we have the bliss of Nanda, that Nanda is raising Krishna and Balaram as his child. And then, of course, the bliss of the mothers in 10:11:14, that Krishna and Balaram, attached to their play, were playing with the other boys, although it was very late. Therefore, Mother Yasoda called them back for lunch. Because of her ecstatic love, milk was pouring from her breasts. And so, of course, every day we call the Lord, we ring a bell, time for you to have your lunch, right? But he's not usually running away and playing someplace. So imagine if you went to do the offering on the altar and the Lord was off playing somewhere. Come back and eat. Stop your playing. And Nanda Maharaj regularly took his food with his two sons. This is from 10:11:17. And so Mother Yasoda told all the boys, now you should go home. Home, so that Krishna and Balaram can eat with their father. And sometimes Krishna and Balaram would catch hold of the tails of the calves, and the calves would pull them through the dust and mud of Vrindavan. And Mother Yasoda, Mother Rohini, and the women of their same age, the adult gopis, Prabhupada would call the elderly gopis, and they would all be laughing and enjoying these pastimes of Krishna. So God is not just some serious old man in the sky, but he's full of laughter pastimes. And then we have, of course, when Balaram goes to Mother Yasoda, Balaram and the other cowherd boys, and says, we want to tell you that Krishna's eaten dirt. You know, we thought you should know that Krishna's eaten dirt. And Krishna says to his mother, Balaram and all the boys, they're just telling lies about me. They're just making up stories. So there's this sweet interchange between Krishna, Balaram, and Mother Yasoda. And then, of course, whenever the gopis were not looking, whenever they were busy with something, so Krishna and Balaram would bring all their friends together and steal yogurt and steal butter, right? And they would even climb onto the grinding mortar, and if they couldn't reach the pot, they'd throw a rock and they'd make holes in it. And then, after they had eaten everything they could, what did they do with the rest? They gave it to the monkeys, right? And then when the monkeys wouldn't eat anymore, they would say, this is just terrible butter. Even the monkeys won't eat it. Of course, you know, we're all told in Vrindavan, don't feed the monkeys around your house. Because if you do, then they'll come around all the time and cause mischief. So just imagine you're in the kitchen and you've made this prep and you put it there and you turn around and then And then Krishna and Balaram are there breaking the pot and making a big mess. So here's Krishna and Balaram going with all of their friends into the forest. This painting, which we had commissioned for our Manashiksha book, it shows the chief devotees in each of the 5 rasas. So we have the chief servants and friendship, parental, and conjugal love, each of the 5 rasas into the forest. And sometimes the boys would get fatigued by playing, and then they would rest in the forest, and Krishna would personally massage his older brother's lotus feet. And although they were so-called working by tending the calves or making the cows, still their time in the forest was always filled with play in the forest along the Yamuna. And it's nicely explained in Bhagavatam 10:21-18 and 10:18-13 that sheltering in the caves of Govardhan Hill and then playing around Govardhan, that while the other boys were dancing, Krishna and Balaram would sometimes accompany them with song and instrumental music, and sometimes the 2 lords would praise the boys, saying, "Very good, very good, very good." So when we are dancing and singing in front of the deities, the Lord is also looking at us and saying, "Very good, very good." And Balaram would also be blowing his buffalo horn along with Krishna in the morning to call all of his friends to play. Right? And they would enjoy their lunch in the forest. They would bring a picnic, and they would put their plates on rocks or on leaves or various paraphernalia. And of course, Krishna had, because he was the son of Nanda Maharaj, he sometimes had more opulent food than the other boys, but he would share it with the other boys and he would give them what they liked. Of course, they would also be playing around, so the boys sometimes would say, "Hey, there's a monkey over there," and Krishna and Balaram would turn and look, and then the boys would take one of their samosas, open it up, take out the vegetables, and put jasmine flowers inside. I don't think these taste very good. No, and then they'd close them up again, and then Krishna and Balaram would eat into this jasmine-filled samosa and make a funny face. And sometimes Madhu Mangal is also saying, "Hey, look, there's an animal over there," and then he was stealing the sweets from the other plates. And sometimes as they're running through the forest, one boy grabs another lunch bag and throws it to another one and throws it to another one and throws it to another. Now, of course, we know after the boys were eating lunch, right, after the killing of Aghasura, Lord Brahma steals the boys and the calves, and Balaram doesn't know about this for nearly a year, because that pastime happened on Balaram's appearance day. It happened today. So today is also the anniversary of the stealing of the boys and the calves by Brahma. So a few days before today, Balaram actually figured this out when the older men were so attached to their children and the older cows were so attached to their calves. And Balaram's like, "What's going on? Is this a demon's maya, a demigod's maya? No, it must be my Lord Krishna." But Krishna didn't want Balaram to feel separation. So it's amazing how Krishna in one manifestation thinks that he's with his original friends, and another manifestation he is his original friends, relating as the child of the older cowherd men and women, and as the older cows, that he's experiencing all, that he himself is experiencing all these different relationships simultaneously. Nice section where Krishna is praising Lord Balaram. He's describing the glories of Lord Balaram. This is from 10:15:6. Krishna tells Balaram, "O original personality, these bees must all be great sages and most elevated devotees, because they are worshiping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Although you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipful Lord." There's actually no one devotee who's aspiring to be one of these bees in Vrindavan and follow Lord Balaram around wherever he goes. Of course, in this world, we would be kind of annoyed if the bees were following us everywhere. But these bees are great devotees. It's explained in the 3rd canto that the sweetly singing birds stop their singing to listen to the chanting of the bees, even though we would think of the bees as not having such an attractive voice. So Balaram kills two very important demons in Vrindavan that represent passion and ignorance. So Dhenuka, the demon in the form of a donkey, he represents ignorance. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, writing about the killing of these two demons, talks about that the demons that Krishna kills represents anartas that Krishna automatically removes from the heart of the devotee engaged in service. But these two demons that Balaram killed, the devotee also has to make some endeavor by following the instructions of Guru. Again, Balaram is the original Guru. So it's only with the help of following the instructions of Guru that we are able to destroy ignorance and passion, represented by Pralamba Sura. Of course, this pastime is also I find it fascinating because Pralamba disguised himself as a cowherd boy, and even Balaram didn't know that he was a cowherd boy. It wasn't until, Pralamba's carrying him far away, and Balaram's like, what's going on here? And then Pralamba felt Balaram to be as heavy as a mountain, and he couldn't maintain he didn't have enough mystic energy to maintain his cowherd boy disguised. So he showed his original form, and Balaram was like, this carrier has changed in every way. And then Balaram kills him. By that time, they're at the other side of the Yamuna. They're by a banyan tree on the other side of the Yamuna. And then everybody goes there and is celebrating. And at that time, the cows wander off and end up in a forest fire. So many things. I mean, even there we're playing with Krishna. There's going to be demons, there's going to be forest fires, and there's also going to be celebrations. So when Krishna was in the coils of Kaliya, this is from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and the residents of Vrindavan were almost dead in great, this is also the compassion or lamentation rasa mixed with the fear rasa. So they were in great fear for Krishna's safety and greatly lamenting Krishna's situation, and Balaram saw that they were all going to die. And so Srila Sanatana Goswami writes that Balaram says, "Oh Krishna, Krishna, these people are not your associates in Vaikuntha. They're not your monkey associates. They're not the Yadavas. They are the people of Raja. You are their only life and soul. They are dying now. Lord, I have no power to save them. They are now lifeless. Merciful Krishna, only friend of the people of Raja. Please give up this pastime, or your gentle heart will be filled with grief." So Balaram's saying, if you don't get out of the coils of Kaliya, they'll die and you'll be devastated. So one time when Krishna and Balaram were having a festival together with their respective gopis, which doesn't happen very much, so they were playing in the forest at night together with their different gopis. Then Sankachyuta came and he started driving all the women off toward the north. So Krishna told Balaram to stay with the gopis, and he followed Sankachyuta. Sankachyuta went a very great distance, right? And the Lord overtook him. And then with his fist, he took the demon's head off along with his valuable jewel, which he then gave to Balaram. So it's very nicely explained in 10:34:20 that the gopis were probably each thinking, oh, Krishna's going to give the jewel to me. So to prevent this rivalry, he gave the jewel to Balaram. Now, we know that Lord Balaram comes back to Vrindavan. After leaving Vrindavan, he comes back to Vrindavan, where he has his own Rasa Leela with his gopis. Very nicely explained, and this is his chief gopi, Purnananda, as explained in the Gorgana Deshti 155. So here he's dancing with his gopis on the bank of the Yamuna, which was bathed by the rays of the full moon and the fragrance of night-blooming lotuses. Of course, while he's dancing with his gopis, he asked the Yamuna to come near so that they can bathe in the Yamuna, and she refuses because she thinks that Balaram is intoxicated. And of course, this is the pastime we sang in the beginning. immortalized.
Why are you leaving Vrindavan?
Past tense.
Why are you leaving Vrindavan? Why are you leaving Vrindavan?
So Akura comes and takes Krishna and Balaram out of Vrindavan. And on his way, he stops to chant Gayatri in the Yamuna, and there he sees the Lord taking the form of Vishnu and Balaram taking the form of Ananta Sesha. And he sees all of the Siddhas, Charanas, Gandharvas, and demons bowing down and worshiping the Lord. When Krishna and Balaram enter Mathura, they kill the elephant Kuvalayapita, and they take the tusks from that elephant into the wrestling arena. And of course, they're fighting with Chanura and Mustika, who they defeat. And after Krishna kills Kamsa,
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
then Vasudeva and Devaki arrange for them to get an education and to study the Shastras, which have come from them. So, although they're the authors of the Shastras, still they're studying the Shastras. Although Balaram's the original guru, still he takes shelter of a guru. And then, at the end of their studies, right, then they're supposed to pay tuition. So nowadays we are paying tuition every month to a school, right? You send your child to the school, you have to pay tuition every month. But in the old system, you paid your tuition at the end of your education. And then it was, of course, you were going out and begging every day for the guru. It's not that the guru had to starve until you graduated. So they were going out every day to bathe and to collect wood and so forth. But at the end of their education, what would you like? And Sandipani Muni's wife said, why don't you ask Krishna and Balaram to bring back our dead son? So they do that. And that's also how Krishna gets his conch shell. And Devaki heard about this. And so she approached her divine children and she said, you brought back Sandipani Muni's son, could you bring back my sons too? I would like to see my sons. And so Krishna and Balaram arranged that the children came back to life and they sucked Devaki's breast, which had been sucked by the personality of Godhead, which then relieved them of the curse.
Open my eyes to your wonders new. You captured my heart with this love. 'Cause nothing on earth is as beautiful as you.
So Balaram again is the manifestation of the beauty of the Lord there in Dwarka, as ordered by Lord Brahma. Kakundi, the opulent ruler of Anarta, gave Lord Balaram his daughter Revati in marriage. Now, we know that the founding of Dwarka happened because of the fighting of Jarasandha, Jarasandha had fought 17 times, and the 18th time, Krishna and Balaram jumped off the mountain. They jumped a total distance of about 88 miles, and they ran away from the battlefield because Krishna wanted to attend to a letter sent by Rukmini. And after kidnapping Rukmini, when Rukmini was chasing after them, Balaram had also come with his army because he figured that there was going to be some problem. And it was at the point where Krishna could have killed Rukmini. And this is, of course, interesting because later on Balaram kills Rukmini. But Balaram says to Krishna, he says, a relative should not be killed even if his wrongdoing warrants capital punishment. Rather, he should be thrown out of the family. Since he has already been killed by his own sin, why kill him again? That's from 1054:39. But then he turns to Rukmini, and he says, this is in 1054:49, he says, your attitude is unfair. Your attitude that you don't want your brother to be killed. For like an ignorant person, you wish good for those who are inimical to all living beings and have done evil to your true well-wishers. With transcendental knowledge, dispel this grief that is weakening and confounding your mind. Please resume your natural mood, O princess of the pristine smile. So Balaram tells Krishna, hey, you can't kill your brother-in-law, and he tells Rukmini, Kshatriyas have to kill even relatives if they're evil. Stop having sympathy for your brother. And later, of course, Balaram himself kills Rukmi. We have this really nice pastime of when Arjuna was traveling, because he'd walked in on Yudhisthira and Draupadi, and he was traveling, and he came to Dwarka, and having heard about Subhadra, he wanted to marry her, so he disguised himself as a sannyasi. This whole pastime is very interesting. So he disguises himself as a sannyasi in order to woo Subhadra. So he's there hanging out in Dwarka. I guess he figured in his sannyas vesh that nobody would suspect his intentions. And Balaram had already said that his sister could be married to Duryodhana. Right? And at the time when they're eating together, Arjuna's just looking at Subhadra, thinking of her 24 hours a day, and she's looking at him and thinking, I'd really like to marry him. And then, of course, Arjuna kidnaps Subhadra, who even drives the chariot. And Balaram was so angry that he was prepared to kill Arjuna, and Krishna had to interfere and say, no, our sister actually wants to marry him. This was her idea. Okay, now we're going to go to the story of Dvidvida. So Dvidvida is pointed out by Srila Jiva Goswami. He was an associate of Lord Ramachandra's, but he later became corrupted by bad association with the demon Naraka. And Naraka, of course, is Krishna's son by Bhumi. He was Narakasya Saka. He was the friend of Naraka. And this bad association, now please listen very carefully because this is very important. This bad association was the reaction to an offense Dvidvida had committed against Lakshmana when he was proud of his own strength. So when we commit an offense, one response to that may be that Krishna puts us in bad association. Madhvacharya says that if we offend the devotees, the Lord will put that the Lord will then put stumbling blocks in our path to keep us away from him. Just like if someone offends us or offends someone who's dear to us, we'll block them on social media. So Krishna puts up blocks, and he'll put you in a situation where you'll get pulled further away. So the devotees of Lord Ramachandra often recite prayers to Mainya and Dvidvida, who are attendant deities of the Lord, and this Dvidvida is supposed to be like a partial expansion of that potency. So Jiva Goswami says that Mainya and Dvidvida are empowered expansions of these deities from the Vaikuntha domain. And Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says the Lord arranged the degradation of Dvidvida and Mainya to show the evil of bad association that results from offending personality.
You've been slipping into darkness. Pretty soon you're gonna pay. Pretty soon you're gonna pay.
So Balaram, while he was in Dwarka, was in Raivata Hill, dancing with some young girls. And in the BBT summary of this chapter, it says it was the gopis, but it definitely was not the gopis. It was some other women. And Dvidvida had already been causing a lot of problems in general in the kingdom with raping and stealing and harassing and kidnapping. And there he came to Raivata mountain, and he starts making fun of Balaram and making fun of the girls and showing them his private parts. And the girls just started laughing, right? More and more aggressive. Balaram actually began to fight with him. Right? The girls thought the whole thing was just funny, right? But Balaram took it very seriously, and they were fighting with trees and with stones and finally with their fists, and then Balaram smashed his collarbone and killed him. So in another story, we have Samba, who went to the Swayamvar of Lakshmana, and she was Duryodhana's daughter, and she didn't want to marry Samba, but he kidnapped her. And by kidnapping her, the Kurus were very angry, and they arrested him. When Lord Balaram went there to try to settle the matter, the Kurus insulted him. So Balaram, being very upset by this insult, he decided that he was going to drag Hastinapur into the Ganges. And as everyone in Hastinapur saw their city shaking, they came out and took shelter of Lord Balaram. This pastime shows that the intimate associates of the Lord, even if they don't act fully properly all the time, still they get protection. We have another very nice story about the Shaimantaka jewel. So we know that Shatrajit, he didn't want to give this jewel to King Ugrasena, and instead, finally he gave the jewel to Krishna along with his daughter Satyabhama. But there was a conspiracy to kill Satrajit, that Sattvadanva and Akura, they made this conspiracy to kill Satrajit. And when Krishna and Balaram were chasing Satyadhanva a very, very long distance to kill him, they ended up in Mithila. So they chased him all the way to Mithila. And once they got there, Balaram said to Krishna, you know, the king of Mithila is a very dear friend of mine, so I think I want to hang out here for a while. So Balaram stayed there actually for quite some time. He stayed there for several years, honored by his dear friend. And while he was there, what did he do? Something very significant. Does anyone know what he did there? Very important later on. Yes, this is where he trained Duryodhana in club fighting. So during the time of a solar eclipse, everybody gathered in Kurukshetra, and regardless of what people say nowadays, they were all outside during the eclipse. They weren't hiding in their houses with the doors closed. They were outside. And they were all bathing, and they were chanting various mantras and giving charity. Charity given during the time of an eclipse has far more effect than charity given at other times. And this is when Krishna and Balaram met with all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So this is the time when the inhabitants of Vrindavan got to see their dear Krishna and Balaram. And of course, they wanted to bring him back to Vrindavan, which we celebrate in our Rath Yatra festival, this meeting of Krishna and Balaram. And they wanted to bring Subhadra too, I guess, bring her also to Vrindavan. So this is our Rath Yatra chariot, that emotionally to bring the Lord back to Vrindavan. So as we were saying, Balaram does kill Rukmi himself later. So this is one detail of Varnashram that we do not wish to bring back in 2026, that in Kshatriya weddings, that if people kill each other, it's not taken seriously. I mean, it wasn't that long that if you killed someone in a duel, that was legal. That wasn't murder. You know, concepts of what's moral and ethical change in time. So they were having this chess match, and Rukmi accused Balaram of cheating, and a voice from the sky came and said, Balaram is not cheating, and Rukmi kept insisting, and of course the king of Kalinga also, and so Balaram killed Rukmi and took out the teeth of the king of Kalinga, and Krishna didn't say anything at all. He was totally silent, because he didn't want to come on either Balaram's side or Rukmini's side. The death of his brother-in-law during the marriage of his grandson to Rukmi's granddaughter. And then everyone went on with the festivities. So we have this, many great battles. This is the battle with Banasura after Usha, her friend Chitraleka, kidnapped Aniruddha. And here we have Balaram fighting with Kumbhanda and Kumbhakarna. Kupakarna, not Kumbhakarna, Kupakarna. So Balaram was definitely engaged in fighting along with Krishna, and at one point he went to a meeting of the great sages where Romaharshan Sutta was there giving discourses, but Romaharshan Sutta did not acknowledge Balaram in any way. He was thinking, well, I'm sitting on the Vyasasan. Nobody move the camera, Jagadguru. And I'll get a message later from somebody, we couldn't see the screen anymore. So Balaram noted that Ramaharshan Sutta did not give any kind of acknowledgement, and so he picked up a blade of kusha grass and he killed Ramaharshan Sutta. So at that time, the Brahmanas said, you can do whatever you want, Lord Balaram, but we don't want other people to just think that they can behave like this. And Balaram said, well, I can bring him back to life if you want. They said, no, just transfer the benedictions he had to his son. But you can do something to atone. You can kill the demon Balvala, who is disturbing our sacrifices. So then on the new moon day, a great wind arose, great disturbances, and Balaram called for his plow and his club, and he brought down the great demon Balvala. After that, the sages said, why don't you become now a vanaprastha? Why don't you retire from fighting and visit the holy places for purification? So Balaram then travels from one holy place to another. He comes to Prayag, to the ashram. Can we increase the volume of this? I don't know how we can increase the volume. How do we increase? I don't know which one increases it. I'm kind of afraid. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit to the beginning of this. Okay, so he goes on pilgrimage. He goes to Prayag. He goes to the ashram of Pulaha Rishi. And he goes to the mouth of the Ganges where he worships his forefathers. At Mount Mahendra, he sees Parasaram, and he bathes in the 7 branches of the Godavari River. Then he meets Kartikeya, and he visits the abode of Lord Shiva. He gave brahmanas thousands of cows. He sees Agastya Muni meditating at Setubandha, and he visits the deity of Durga Devi. He went to Palguna Tirtha, where he gave another 10,000 cows, and entered the Dandaka forest. Then he heard that there was a great battle going on between the Pandavas and the Kurus. And Balaram himself had now retired from fighting, but he wanted to go see what was going on. And here he comes at the end of the battle, and he sees Bhima and Duryodhana fighting. And he wanted to stop this club fight. But when Yudhisthira, Krishna, Arjuna, and Nakul and Sahadev saw Balaram, they offered obeisances, but they didn't say anything because they thought, whose side are you on here? We don't know who you're rooting for. And Balaram said to them, King Duryodhana and Bhima, listen, you 2 warriors are equal in fighting prowess. I know that one of you has greater physical power, the other is better trained in technique. Well, Balaram trained him in technique, so he would know. Since you are so evenly matched, I don't see how either of you can win or lose, so stop this useless battle. But they did not accept what Balaram said. And each of them, the word here in Sanskrit is anusmaram. Anusmar means you're remembering over and over and over again. So Krishna tells Arjuna, Mam anusmaram yujyacha. Think of me over and over again while you're fighting, while we're doing our activities of life. We should remember the Lord over and over again. But instead, Duryodhana and Bhima, what were they remembering over and over again? He insulted me then. He tried to kill me then. He did this to me then. He did this to me then. He did this to me then. And so they were not able to hear the words of the Supreme Guru, Lord Balaram. Then Lord Balaram, saying, okay, this is the arrangement of fate, he went back to Dwarka. Ugrasena, the other relatives, were delighted to see him. Then he returned to Naimisharanya, where the sages joyfully engaged him in performing various types of Vedic sacrifice. Balaram, now retired from warfare, bestowed upon the sages pure spiritual knowledge, by which they could see the whole universe within him and see that he was pervading everything. So this is Ekopyasora Chaitam Jagananda Koti Achaktaresi Jagananda Chaya Yaranta Andantarasta Padamanu Chayantarastam. This amazing situation that the universe is within the Lord And yet the Lord is pervading everything at the same time, which is inconceivable to try to hold both of that in our brain. So after these sacrifices, then he and his wife Devaki did the Avarita bath, and they were beautifully dressed and ornamented, encircled by family and other relatives, looking like the moon surrounded by its effulgent rays. Finally, when the Yadavas and all the other warriors died, Krishna had watched Balaram sit down in meditation on the seashore. As Balaram became absorbed in trance, the many-hooded divine serpent Anantasesha had come out of his mouth. Worshipped by Varuna and other gods, the serpent went toward the ocean and vanished. And thus Balaram departed. So we have about 4 minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, additions, subtractions, chastisements?
So, who are the girls that fall on?
I have no idea who those girls were at Raivata Mountain. Tried to figure it out and no idea. Well, they were too far away. That was all the way in Dwarka by Raivata Hill. What would the gopis have been doing all the way there? I mean, I suppose anything's possible, but it's highly unlikely. Well, in the fight we've been reading about with Shalva, Raivata Mountain is one of the places where his airplane would appear to settle. So it's right there in Dwarka. Nice to have you back, Chaitanya. Any other? You were definitely missed. You were very conspicuous by your absence. Any other questions, comments about Balaram? Yes.
So when Rohini was pregnant and her husband was always in Vrindavan for, didn't that, weren't people suspicious? How could she be pregnant when her husband's not here?
Well, clearly Rohini had visited her husband in Mathura. I mean, although Vasudeva was imprisoned, he was a political prisoner. He wasn't like in some, like the painting that Prabhupada approved, you can see that Vasudeva and Devaki are in a nice place. It's just that Kamsa wanted them there to kill their children, and Vasudeva's wives obviously could visit him there. I mean, we have no idea, like once Rohini and Vasudeva's other wives also were kept in Vrindavan safely, if any of them ever went to Mathura to visit him. One can guess that they probably sent letters back and forth. Because everyone knew that that was Vasudeva's son. I mean, he was there to be protected from Kamsa, but it was unlike Krishna that no one knew was Vasudeva's son. Excellent question, thank you. Anybody else?
When I was listening online, you were glorifying Shamkishori Mataji, and then someone in the audience said something and you didn't know how to react.
I don't remember.
What that was? You were talking about how she picks the flowers and makes the garland and drives all the way here.
Because she made the garland just for her.
Right, I know. Oh, is that what was said?
Yeah, that it was made.
You didn't know how to react to.
Yeah. that she'd made it just for me. Yeah, I was kind of, I'm still a little, or more than a little overwhelmed by that.
I've been meditating, and I think probably many devotees have been meditating on how Balaram is all the paraphernalia for worship, because so much of our service here at the temple relates to paraphernalia, you know, whether it's the technology or the flowers, you know, the clothing, the swing. And so I think that it's just such a wonderful way to do service, is to understand that Balaram is the paraphernalia and is the one empowering us to be his instruments of service. And it's just been a beautiful meditation.
Oh, thank you so
When
much.
when you talked about that, I felt great joy.
Oh, very much. Thank you very much. So just for the people online, Champagalata was saying how this meditation on how Balaram's the paraphernalia, because at the temple, one of the main things we do is deal with the paraphernalia, right? And that Balaram is empowering us to serve him through the paraphernalia. Balaram ki jai! Srila Prabhupada, without whom we wouldn't know any of this, ki jai! We want to put the camera back.
Hare Krishna, Tamaham Bhajami Govindam. All right. Whoopee.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna.